So you want to see how crazy these right-wingers are? Check this out. They now are demanding that Donald Trump pardon the man who murdered George Floyd. Yeah. Listen to this idiot, Ben Shapiro, as he tries to make the argument why Derek Chauvin should be pardoned of the federal crimes that he was convicted of.
If we are issuing pardons, however, there is one person that President Trump should pardon from federal charges forthwith. It would be incredibly controversial, but I think that it's absolutely necessary. That person is Derek Chauvin. President Trump should, in fact, pardon Derek Chauvin. He should. He should pardon him his federal charges. If we are talking about reversing the evils of the last several years in American life, obviously COVID and its handling was a massive evil. Destroyed the economy, set us on a path to fiscal insanity, destroyed children, led to massive health-related cover-ups, just horrifying all the way around. And President Trump has taken on a lot of those things. But when it came to BLM, the inciting event for the BLM riots that caused $2 billion in property damage in the United States and set America's race relations on their worst footing in my lifetime, was in fact the railroading of Derek Chauvin in the death of George Floyd. The evidence demonstrates that Derek Chauvin did not, in fact, commit murder of George Floyd. George Floyd was high on fentanyl. He had a significant pre-existing heart condition. George Floyd was saying he could not breathe before he was even out of the car. He was in the car saying he could not breathe. Derek Chauvin, for large segments of even the tape that was shown, had his knee on George Floyd's shoulder or back, not on his neck. The autopsy of George Floyd showed that he had no damage to his trachea, that probably George Floyd died of excited delirium. There were no accusations, even at trial, that Derek Chauvin had committed a hate crime against George Floyd or that he targeted George Floyd because of his race. Nonetheless, on the basis of extraordinarily scanty evidence, and despite the fact that there was massive pressure on the jury, that the mayor of Minneapolis paid a settlement to the George Floyd family immediately, that the president of the United States suggested that Derek Chauvin was guilty right off the bat, that the jurors were being openly threatened and admitted as much. Despite all of that, Derek Chauvin was convicted on federal charges and pled guilty to federal charges. Derek Chauvin should, in fact, be pardoned on that. We will be covering that a lot more in coming weeks because I think it is worthwhile to remember that there is a man who is rotting in prison because the media decided in the middle of 2020 that they were going to turn a tragic law enforcement stop that ended with the death of a man who had a significant problem with drugs and pre-existing health problems into the raison d'etre of the entire 2020 election. And it led to vast chaos. It led to, again, the destruction of racial comedy in the United States, $2 billion in property damage, and a guy rotting in prison who the evidence demonstrates certainly was not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in that case. If we're going to talk about delivering pardons, President Trump, I think, should really seriously consider pardoning on federal charges. He can't pardon on state charges Derek Chauvin, who is convicted of the murder of George Floyd. As I say, we will be covering this pretty extensively in the coming weeks. Right now, you should go to pardonderek.com and sign our petition asking President Trump to grant justice to Officer Derek Chauvin. That is pardon, P-A-R-D-O-N, Derek.com.
Robert, these racists sure are pretty hilarious to sit here and go, well, you look at the evidence. Actually, a jury did. And didn't he even say that Derek Chauvin pled guilty to the federal charges?
He did indeed. And this is the interesting thing that has come from this entire movement. Just finally getting to see people for who they were. Because if you listen to Ben Shapiro from 5 years ago, let's say, he tried to come across as this centrist, moderate, who wanted to be on both sides of the aisle but had a conservative tilt. And now we've just been able to pull the mask off of these things, where they want to repeal the Civil Rights Act of 1964. They want to repeal the Voting Rights Act of 1965. They're pulling the federal government and DOJ out of consent decrees with themselves in police jurisdictions. They're pardoning the January 6th rioters, and now they want to pardon one of the few opportunities of racial justice that we've had. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't just go back retroactively and pardon everyone ever convicted of a hate crime against African Americans just to prove a point. And at this point in time, we as black folks have to decide whether we're going to have skin in the game or not. Is our response to all these things simply going to be that we're going to make angry posts on social media? Remember after Trayvon was murdered, everybody changed their Facebook profile picture and blacked it out in order to make a change? Are we really going to dive down and figure out how we are going to be to understand that we are being pushed back in to becoming second-class citizens in this country? The first generation of black folks to have full rights were born after 1965 and are still alive today and are barely 60 years old, and those rights are now being rescinded and going backwards. That this is the first generation where that baton that was passed down from our first ancestors who left the continent, who ran away, who fought their captors, who fought through the Civil War and through enslavement for freedom, who fought through Jim Crow and the Civil Rights Movement. Those rights are for the first time by this generation. That baton is being dropped, and we're allowing people to go, allowing America to go backwards. And the question becomes, what are we going to do about it? If they pardon Derek Chauvin, is every black police officer in this country going to turn their badge in and say, y'all go figure this out yourselves, and we're not going to be part of this justice system? Is every lawyer going to say, well, I'm not appearing in court before the corrupt judicial system, which clearly does not respect the rights of African Americans? Are lawmakers going to simply say, y'all figure it out yourselves, and we're going to go back to our communities and figure out how we can sustain an economic model that creates a nation within a nation as we've seen around the world? Or are we simply going to say, dang, that was messed up, hope that don't happen again, and they'd be right back there the next day? This is the reason that when they started this attack, they didn't go directly here first. First, they decided that they would attack history and say that any black history is critical race theory and therefore ban it from schools. Then so once you uneducate a population, then you can say, well, any programs that are made to ameliorate past equality, that's not fixing a problem, that's reverse racism. And you go after that next. And then you remove the legal protections that keep us on an equal footing. So at what point in time when we just keep backing up and backing up and backing up, then we simply say we're going to do something about it? We have to be at that point right now, or else there will be nothing less to say. So Derek Chauvin is indeed pardoned. We can't be mad at Shapiro or Trump or Musk or anybody else. The conversation then has to be, what are we going to do about it?
What's hilarious, Zachary, is that he got 22 and a half years in prison on the state charges. He got 21 years on the federal charges. They're being served concurrently. So a pardon ain't gonna do nothing, and he's not rotting in prison. He was justly sentenced for his actions.
By a jury of his peers in an American justice system that rarely gives justice for someone like him when someone like me loses their life. So it is clearly Ben Shapiro and the people that support him and the people that uphold him trying to send a message to people like Derek Chauvin that they can do what they want to do, and to people like me and you, Roland, that our lives have very little value, if any at all, and that we are, once again, as always, in danger. That's what it's about. That's what he's trying to say. That's what he is trying to say.
They are showing us exactly who they are. Ben Shapiro is the white nationalist that he absolutely is, Michael.
Oh, absolutely. But Ben Shapiro left out an important fact, well, many important facts. So he wanted to talk about the numerous Black Lives Matter protests that took place, and Washington Post did an analysis, and approximately 90% were nonviolent. But I find it very ironic, very interesting that Ben Shapiro, you didn't want to talk about the January 6th insurrection because the Government Accountability Office found that the January 6th insurrection cost $2.7 billion in estimated costs when it comes to damages, and they broke this down in a 122-page report, and it dealt with damage to the Capitol building and grounds, costs borne by the Capitol Police, the District of Columbia, and federal agencies. So how is it that you talk about numerous Black Lives Matter protests all across the country, but you don't want to talk about this one-day incident incited by the same guy who you want to give a pardon to, Derek Chauvin, but at the same time, there was overwhelming evidence proving that Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd, and they brought in experts as well, and they showed the video. So Ben Shapiro is one of these white supremacists that out here put this bullshit out here to drive up MAGA, to rile up MAGA, and distract from the fact that Donald Trump is not bringing down the price of groceries, and they're losing their jobs at the same time. Okay, so deal with this, Ben Shapiro, or shut the hell up.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now, we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $6.65 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $8.6 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.